I left the city, I've been browsing, treading water that they drowning. My head on a swivel, yeah. It's only really my surroundings.
Welcome to episode 27 of the Smash Accept podcast. I'm your host, Michael Royer. You can find me at Dynasty_DadFF. And today what we're going to talk about, and this is kind of like a sneak preview, we're going to start doing some mini pods. And then in February, we're going to switch over to a Patreon program. But we're going to talk about a little bit of some of the things that we're going to go over there is our tight end rankings. And this is a position that we believe at Smash Accept is very easily predictable. But at the same time, people struggle with this. So we're going to go over our top, 12 to 15 tight end rankings. We're going to go through with some of the most esteemed colleagues we have in the game. First we have is Mung. Why don't you introduce yourself and tell people what you have going on?
Hey, what's going on, guys? As always, you can find me on Twitter at FFA_Mung. And of course, I'll have plenty of off-season Dynasty buy and sell content over at Fantrax. But I'm excited for this Patreon that we're starting. It's kind of like OnlyFans, right? That's what I've heard. But, you guys will be able to interact with us a lot more. The thing about fantasy is everything's changing on a day-to-day basis. Player news, especially as we get into free agency, player values are going to shift dramatically within the span of a day or two. And just staying on top of all that, that's what wins you fantasy championships.
Absolutely. And there's a lot of podcasts giving you a lot of fluff right now. But speaking of OnlyFans, John, I believe you have your own OnlyFans right now. I'm the one that put the flex out there, so maybe that's mine. But John, why don't you tell people what you have going on and how excited you are for this Patreon program?
Yeah, I'm pumped about it. And just like Monk said, what we're trying to do here is give you an edge. I mean, we love this. We're all degenerates here, and we put a lot of effort into this, and you can take advantage of that, right? This isn't about us making money. This is just about us to be able to keep this pod going and really amp it up a little bit more and give you everything that you want to get out of this. So, you just jump in and enjoy the extra rankings, the extra pods, everything that comes with this. And I really think you're going to get a lot of value out of it, and it's just going to help feed the hobby that much more. I think it's absolutely going to be worth it.
Yeah, and John, I mean, we talked about this last couple pods. I mean, Mung won multiple championships. I won 7. You won multiple championships.
Yeah.
And the reason, a lot of that is we've been interacting in the Smash Accept group, and part of your Patreon program is having access to all the Smash Accept analysts. Mung and Mark and yourself and Jesse, CJ, so many great analysts out there that know their stuff.
Right.
And they put it out there. And, we all like to smash. Everybody loves to smash except T-shirts. Mark, why don't you talk to us about the podcast we're talking about, launching here, as well as, what's going on with Patreon?
Yeah, we're going to soon launch a new episode with Smash Trading with FF Day Trader. Everybody likes to trade. Now we're just going to put some input on the trades that come in. Everybody likes to hear about trades. I mean, that's mainly why I interact with.
No doubt.
Yeah. And Mung, John, and I are going to talk to some great analysts coming up in a couple of weeks. Chad Parsons, Izzy Alcafaz from DTC. We're going to talk to Travis May, Katie Flowers. But what we're going to do on day trading is myself, Mark, FF Day Trader. We're going to talk about what really put us on the map was when we talked about the value of Michael Thomas when he got hurt, the value of Kittle when he got hurt, the value of Burrow when he got hurt. We're going to talk about some of those things, like what's DK Metcalf worth right now, and what are some trades that you guys should make, and really hit you guys up with your trades, right? So you guys send in trades. We're going to hit that. But tonight, what we're going to talk about, and another major portion of what we're going to do in the Patreon program, is talk about our rankings. So we have our tight end rankings, and it is an exciting group. I mean, a lot of times people really don't pay attention to tight ends, and that's a major mistake, right? I mean, some of us have paid attention to tight ends, and we picked up guys like Darren Waller when he was free, and 2 years later, guess what? He is winning us some championship. We talked about it in the last program. John's not willing to pay up to get him, but Darren Waller is a stud. So without further ado, let's jump right into our rankings. I mean, what we did was we have myself, Mung, Mark, John, at Dynasty Refinery and at FF Day Trader, and we ranked all the tight ends, right? And we're doing a composite ranking today. So the guy that finished as the tight end 1, and he finished, 3 of us had him as the tight end 1, 2 of us had him as the tight end 2. It's George Kittle. There's no 2 people in the world that should talk about George Kittle more than FF_Mung and at the Dynasty Lefty. Mark, why is George Kittle your tight end 1?
Age is definitely a factor. You don't really know what you're getting yet. The quarterback situation is going to change, or I would assume that it's going to change. And who knows? Deshaun Watson, some of these guys really could increase his value, and he gets injured a lot. So I don't know if this is hypothetical, but like they could use him not a little less on the blocking game, more of the Kelsey role where he's lining out basically as a wide receiver.
Yeah, and Mung, you've battled, John and I for months saying Kittle's the tight end 1. Now you finally have Mark here to back you up here a little bit. Talk to people, moving on there. And I know Mark's got the Kittle jersey. He's got the Bosa jersey. The great Christmas present is the Bosa autograph jersey. But talk to me why Kittle is your tight end 1 and not Travis Kelce.
Yeah, and I won't go on for too long because we've gone round and round in circles, and I have no issue with anyone who's putting Kelce still at tight end 1 because he's only 31 years old. But the fact of the matter is you're getting an extra 4 years out of George Kittle, and his value is slightly depressed just because he's had some injuries recently, but he's still the number 1 receiver in that Kyle Shanahan offense, and we know that the scheme really sets him up to get him out open in space, and the yards after the catch is where Kittle is most dangerous, really. And to Mark's point, we don't know what the quarterback situation is going to be heading into 2021, but there is a chance that they could make an upgrade from Garoppolo, whether that's a free agent, a trade, or a rookie.
Yeah, and we represent Zoolander a lot, reference old school. John, I'm going to reference it Wedding Crashers. Hey, Ma, Meatloaf. Why is the Meatloaf Travis Kelce? Why?
I wasn't quite ready for that segue, but I like it.
No, I had a drink during the last episode, so we're
I mean, seriously, I get the age gap, I really do. But you look at what's going on with San Francisco right now, and there is a fair amount of uncertainty, and they certainly look to be wanting to spread around the ball in the Shanahan offense. And I don't even have to worry about any of that. I don't have to worry about the recent injury history. Kelce has been the tight end 1 for the past 5 years in a row. He's putting up Hall of Fame numbers, and I think he's going to continue to. He's in the best offense in the NFL. He's got the best QB in the NFL. And a lot of the play calling has him as the number 1 target, go-to in that Andy Reid offense. He has continued to score. He's often the number 1 look in the red zone. He it is often even, as I said, the top target over Tyreek Hill. That kind of consistency wins you championships, and so that's what you have to bet on at this point. And he's my tight end 1, no question.
John, I totally agree, and I couldn't be prouder to announce you as the assistant to the podcast host for this week, from the Smashies. If you guys
Don't get used to that, yeah.
To episode 26, we tried our best to have a little bit of fun, a little bit of, let loose and a little bit of office vibe. So the 1 and 2, there's no argument, right? They're in a tier of their own, and those guys are the guys you want. And Kittle usually goes before Kelce in the dynasty drafts. Mark and we just did a draft where Kittle went 204, Kelce went end of the second. I think that's about right. There's a big push right now to the Superflex quarterback group because there's a group of about 10 guys that are fantastic. There's a push for some of those wide receivers. But when we really get into the debate, it's between the 3 and the 4. So right now, it's between Darren Waller, who was phenomenal this past season, and TJ Hawkinson, who I hyped beyond belief. I mean, I talk so much, it cracked the screen. But we have it right now, where we have Hawkinson ranked 4th, 3rd, 4th. And then we have Waller 3rd, 4th, 5th, 3rd. Mung, you have Darren Waller ranked 5th right now, and that was the lowest of any of us. Tell me why you have him behind Mark Andrews, behind TJ Hawkinson, and why he's the 5th guy on your board.
Yeah, and I've touched on this a little bit in past shows, but really it comes down to 2 factors. One is the age. And again, he doesn't have as much tread on his tires because he wasn't really playing an impact role until the last couple of years. But the reason for that was because of his off-field issues. He did deal with substance abuse, and I'm very happy for him. He's come a long way. I hope that he can stay that way. Again, I'm absolutely rooting for him to succeed, but the risk is there, right? We've seen with other players, and this isn't quite a situation like Josh Gordon, but substance abuse is something that reoccurs quite a bit, and it's just the risk for me. And then TJ Hawkinson and Mark Andrews, both younger players, both dynamic parts of their respective offenses. It's just a slight gap, and they're all 3 of them are in the same tier for me. I just have Waller 1 step below.
Yeah, and the rest of us have Hawkinson and Waller in that tier too. And John, you're huge on Waller. Mark, you're huge on Waller. For me, TJ Hawkinson is prime for that year 3 breakout, right? He's been a top 5 tight end this year. He's looked fantastic. A lot of questions of who the quarterback's going to be. Is it going to be Stafford? Is it going to be somebody new to the equation? But John, why do you have Darren Waller as the 3 and not TJ Hawkinson?
At one point, I did actually have Hawkinson at my number 3 overall
you were
tight
drinking
end.
the Kool-Aid, right? Like I literally put so
bit.
much Kool-Aid in that picture that one week. I was like,
yeah, we did, no doubt about it.
Hawkinson,
and you can't argue. I mean, the guy's 23. He was just drafted in the top 10 out of the NFL draft, and he is a key part of that Detroit Lions offense. But he's really not. I mean, clearly, if you watch the games, Darren Waller for me is still another level above. I respect Monk's view on that. I kind of understand some of the risk, but the reward though and the ceiling on Waller is considerably higher than Hawkinson. He was so consistent week in, week out. He increased the red zone looks. The touchdowns were up. Most people were talking about regression expected for Waller this year, and they were dead wrong. He actually increased the number of targets, receptions, and touchdowns, really every metric you want to look at. And again, no matter who the QB is there, as long as Gruden is there and the offense that they have installed there, Waller and the offense is going to kind of run through him most of the time. And again, like just watch the games. He gets open constantly. He wins contested balls. He's an athletic freak. He's got it all. I do think TJ Hawkinson will continue to grow and mature, and we're going to see him improve again in the coming year. But he, for me, is still not quite at the level of Darren Waller, and I don't know that he can quite get to that level. In fact, I'm just going to go to the extent that I'm almost willing to include Waller in that top tier. And I know that maybe it could be viewed as a hot take, but that is the way I'm looking at Darren Waller right now.
John, I mean, as far as rookie picks go right now, and I know I was dogging you a little bit because we're talking trades right now. But what kind of picks are you willing to trade for Darren Waller? Let's say it's 1.5 tight end premium, the standard league that we're all used to. As far as rookie picks, what are you willing to pay for Darren Waller?
I think that you really are looking at 2 firsts in a tight end premium league, and that's what you should really be expected to pay because he becomes that difference maker on a week in, week out basis. I mean, he really is truly one of those guys that's a cheat code in a tight end premium league. Go compare him versus wide receiver 1 numbers, and what you're going to see is Waller is doing that. He really is like a top 5-6 type of wide receiver on your team in a tight end premium league. Very much like George Kittle and Travis Kelce can be. So imagine, what are you willing to pay for like a top 6 wide receiver 1 in your dynasty league? We need to start thinking about trading for Waller and of course Kittle and Kelce in that same regard. Yeah. And so, reach out to the Smash Accept crew and we'll work through those types of trades for you. But it is actually worth coughing up maybe a 21 first and a 22 first. Or, kind of a mixture of picks that you might have and giving yourself the competitive edge in the upcoming season.
Mark, before I ask you the next question, how many wide receivers do you think in tight end premium finished above Darren Waller?
he was putting Travis Kelce numbers, so I'm not gonna say many. One, wait, did you say one?
It's one. The
Oh,
only
wow.
guy to
Wow.
finish above Darren Waller last year in tight end premium was Devontae Adams. Tyreek Hill finished with
There you go.
332. Darren Waller finished with 336. And let's look at the startup we just did. Tyreek Hill went in mid-second. Darren Waller went late fourth. So, I mean,
There you go.
Darren Waller is a value right now. He's not somebody
Yes.
you should be bailing on. He's not somebody you should be giving up easily. He's somebody you should be buying. And I feel like that is the push for the offseason. Now, your rankings were a little bit different. You had Kittle 1, Kelce 2, Waller 3, Hawk 4, and your 5 is totally different than everyone else. Most people have Mark Andrews. You had Noah Fant. Why is that?
I honestly think there's gonna be the quarterback play Drew Lock was so bad this year, and I think there is regret. Like I think that they're gonna get better with that, and he is only gonna get better. He really shined when he was on the field. He had injury issues, he had quarterback play, and he still finished the year quite well. Like I think he will keep getting better. Like Hawk, he will keep getting better.
Yeah,
I agree.
and I have Noah Fant and Mark Andrews in that third tier. I know Mung has Andrews in that second tier, but I feel like right now it's Kittle 1, Kelce 2. I hate saying that, John, because you and I are on the same board.
It's painful to hear you say that.
If we push some of these guys out of the way, it'd be fine. But Hawk and Waller in that 3, 4 in tier 2. And then it falls in 5, 6 is Andrew and Fant. And there's no debate. We've had those guys back and forth between that 5 and that 8 range. And those are the guys. And they're the guys that almost fill in as wide receivers. I mean, Noah Fant is phenomenal when it comes to guys in the slot and being that third wide receiver. And I believe Drew Lock is a quarterback to buy because I think he's going to really excel that offense to the next level. Some people are thinking Matthew Stafford might go there, and the sky's the limit for Noah Fant. But when we get to tight end 7, 8, 9, it becomes a totally different, ball game. When we take the consensus, number 7 is Mike Gesicki. I had him at 7. Mark, you had him at 6. CJ had him 11. I believe Mung, you had him at 6, and John had you at him 7. Mung, why is Mike Gesicki a guy that belongs up in that top 8 wide receiver or tight ends, I should say?
Yeah, I have Gesicki and Fant very close in my rankings, and the reason for that is both have demonstrated that talent. My concern for both of those and why they're not in that tier above is because you have Devontae Parker taking targets in Miami, and then I'm a big Courtland Sutton believer, and I do think that he's still the clear number 1 when he comes back healthy next year. So for me, it's just the lack of that target volume to make them into those elite tight end positions. And I know we already talked about the top guys, but I'll just touch on the fact that both Kenny Galladay and Marvin Jones are both free agents. And that's part of the reason I'm so excited about Hockenson for next year.
Oh, Hockenson is so sexy.
Great point.
Mark, you have Gesicki as 6 as well. I mean, what is the reason that you have him above guys like Logan Thomas and Dallas Goedert and Evan Ingram?
I actually have him over, I think, a 1 spot over Mark Andrews. When Tua started to take over, there was a different connection. He had such a different connection. Tua loves to throw to his tight ends. And the 8 games that he played, he had 35 catches, 414 yards, and 4 touchdowns. I mean, he looked totally different with Tua. When they had Fitzpatrick in the game, they almost ran like a 3 tight end set where he was getting a lot of tight ends were catching balls that shot. Shane, he had like 8 touchdowns or something like that. I really think that once Tua took over, it was a different game.
Yeah, and I'm excited for Tua, his progress in the next season. I'm excited for Watson if they make that trade, and we're all talking about that. That's an exciting thing. Let's move on to tight end number 8. And we all kind of agree with Gesicki. The guy who comes in at tight end 8, and I'm the lowest on him out of anyone, is Dallas Goedert. John, you're the highest out of everyone on Dallas Goedert. Talk to me about Dallas Goedert. Am I too high on Zach Ertz and too low on Dallas Goedert?
Yeah, again, the situation here with Dallas Goedert, you got to bet ahead of the curve. Look at what's going on there. I will admit, look, they just had a change there. Peterson's leaving town. I don't know exactly yet how the new offense is going to look, but from everything that I gather, they're absolutely going to continue forward with a high dependency on the tight end. In fact, if you go look at the numbers, Mike, there's been more targets funneling into the tight end in Philly by quite a large margin than any other NFL team. And Zach Ertz is very likely headed out of town. So do they continue to run 12 and bring in another tight end? Sure. But the guy is going to be Dallas Goedert. And let's say it's Jalen Hurts that's in charge of that new offense. He's going to want to have that security blanket, that guy that's open over the middle of the field and in the red zone. He's going to be looking for Dallas Goedert. And with all due respect to Jalen Reagor, I think that Dallas Goedert is actually the most reliable receiver in the Philly offense. So for those reasons, I actually have Dallas Goedert as my number 6 overall tight end, just a notch above Gesicki and Fant.
Now, going over 2020 stats, I mean, are you familiar with where Dallas Goedert finished out?
Yeah, I've looked at his stats. For this ranking for me is very much a look ahead, which I think is very important for Dynasty. Yeah.
Now, right now he's at the tight end 19 for this past season, and there's been some back and forth, and I love the idea of he's a buy low, right? I mean, you have him all the way up at 6. He finished as 19. Mark and I were talking about off air where, is it going to be Jalen Hurts or is it going to be Carson Wentz this year? I mean, there's a lot of debate between that.
Right.
And if it's Carson Wentz, Mark and I were the only guys that had Zach Ertz in the top 15. I got Zach Ertz in the 15th round of a startup recently, and I feel like that's some decent value. But Dallas Goedert is definitely on the ascending track. We all have him there, and I feel like that's an exciting time. Tight end 9 right now is Logan Thomas. I have him lower than everybody. I have him at tight end 8. He finished as tight end 3. Mark, you have him second highest at tight end 10, as well as Mung. Mark, what did you see about Logan Thomas's game that has him as a top 10 tight end for you?
I think tight end position, that's one of the positions where you can see it coming, kind of like you guys have already said, like Waller and all them. I mean, he reminds me of him. He's such a mismatch when he's on the field, and I like him a lot. Once you get down to this range, you're kind of it's just preference, who you like, and I think he's such a mismatch.
We talked about this in the startup. If you don't get Kelsey, Waller, Hawkinson, or Kelsey, I waited, and I got Tanyan in the 10th, and I really wanted to get Logan Thomas in the 9th, and those kind of guys fall to you. I'm an advocate. If you don't get one of those top 4 studs, you should wait a little bit. But Logan Thomas, Mung, I mean, you've seen what he was, and I know you talked about him at Fantrax. He was a buy. He was one of those guys you could add for literally nothing. I added him in almost all my leagues. But when you saw him play, I mean, how phenomenal was Logan Thomas this year?
Yeah, and he's similar to guys like Walker and Darren Waller, who you guys love, because he just hasn't really had that opportunity. And unlike Waller, who had a late blooming career because of off-field issues, Logan Thomas used to be a quarterback. So he's still learning that tight end position, but his physical athletic traits make him, a perfect fit for that tight end position. And he signed for one more year. We saw that, Dwayne Haskins really kept this offense back. Same with Kyle Allen, whether it's Alex Smith or maybe Taylor Heineke or someone else. I think that Thomas is still the de facto number 2 receiver in Washington for at least 2021.
Yeah, and there could be some regression depending on who the quarterback is for 2021. But I've bought him in the offseason for 2/3, a late second, and I feel like Logan Thomas is only going to continue to ascend in that offense, and he looks fantastic. He's gone late. The guy we have at tight end 10, Mung, you have the highest, and there's been some injury history here, but Hunter Henry, you have him at 10. A lot of the rest of us, I know I have him at 12. Mark has him at 14. John has him at 12. Why do you have Hunter Henry at 9?
Yeah, I mean, he's such a smooth, fluid route runner in the middle of the field. We've seen him get open for Justin Herbert, and he's a free agent right now. So whether it's back with the Chargers with an ascending second-year quarterback in Herbert or another team that really wants to upgrade their tight end position, I do think that Hunter Henry has elite upside if he can stay healthy. Now, that's the question that's kept his ADP and his value from really skyrocketing. But depending on where he lands, I mean, this is a guy who could easily be a top 4, or not dynasty tight end, but top 4 production in 2021.
I totally agree, and it's been the injury that holds him back. Speaking of injuries, we're going to move on to our tight end 11. It's Evan Ingram. I had him at 10. Mark had him at 9. Mung, you had him at 8. CJ and John had him at 14. John, is there upside to Evan Ingram, or are we like totally playing off of 2018 stats with Evan Ingram?
Yeah, if you listen to our previous pod, Mike, I had Evan Ingram as a sell because a lot of folks still do value him a lot higher. If you kind of take a look at his ADP, I'm considerably lower. I won't argue with his athleticism. Remember this guy, I think he ran like a 4.4, 4.42, something like that. And he's one of those guys that is for sure has the athletic traits that you look for, but he is just not getting it done anymore. No. And I'm off of him now and ready to move on to one of these up and coming tight ends like we talked about, and have a couple more, in fact, that I've moved ahead of him. And I just have that major drop in my mind right now. It's just like he's not really as reliable. I think the Giants are starting to get a little bit tired of him too. I'm also down on Daniel Jones. It's just not looking very good in New York right now, kind of heading in the wrong direction. Maybe they can get some of that figured out, but for the time being, I'm moving off of Evan Ingram.
I totally agree with you.
Yeah.
I mean,
I actually had Ingram at 14, I think.
Yeah, so he finished behind.
Not where I'm at. Yeah,
Noah Fant, Hayden Hurst. I mean, Mike Gesicki. He finished down there, and he's still got the name cachet where you can sell him for.
Right. That's the point.
Jonnu plus or Irv Smith plus. And Irv Smith's our next guy. I mean, he finished as the tight end. We have him as a tight end 12. I have him at 11. Mark has him at 10. Mung, you have him at 11. I mean, Mark, Irv Smith is the embodiment of a wide receiver in a tight end body, right? Like he has that potential to be a guy who could finish in that elite section. He's moving into his 3rd year. I hyped him big time in the offseason, but Irv Smith looked good down the stretch.
Yeah, he's definitely somebody I'm interested in buying. I really think that they're gonna sway a little bit from Thielen more to Irv Smith, and who knows? Like Kyle Rudolph might not be. He might not be there. Irv Smith might have the key to the show, and if he does, man, he's gonna skyrocket. Will be in the top 5. I don't know.
Are we talking Irv Smith's probably you can buy for 2/3 at this point, maybe a late second, and I feel like that is a big win in tight end premium because when he came into the league, right now he's going to be turning 22 years old. I mean, he's really ahead of the learning curve because he's so young in the tight end position.
Yeah, I actually have Irv Smith as my number 9 tight end, and I know that's higher than the consensus, but I do love his potential. And I think, Mark, you're right. I think he's either Rudolph is gone or may see a passing of the guard there. And when he's had the opportunity, guys, look at some of the games where Rudolph was out or they decided to go to Irv. He had 3 games above 15 PPR points. A couple of those games he scored twice. They love him in the red zone. Very athletic. Remember what he did coming out of Alabama. So really excited about the potential of Irv Smith. I think he's kind of got a lot of what it takes to be a successful tight end in the NFL.
Yeah, and we have him as our 12 right now. So recapping our top 12, it's Kittle, Kelsey, Hockenson, and Waller in that 3-4 range. 5 Andrews, 6 Fant, 7 Gesicki, 8 Goddard, 9 Thomas, Ingram 11, Irv 12, Henry 10. I kind of skipped that over a little bit. But there's some other guys that are really on that fringe right now, right? I mean, those are your tight end ones. But Tonyan and Jonnu Smith are finishing at 13 and 14. Mung, talk to me the difference between, you have Tonyan and Jonnu. Where do you have those two guys? And the big difference is right now, I mean, Tanyan's tied to Aaron Rodgers. Jonnu, we're not quite sure because of the free agency.
Yeah, those two are headed in different directions for me. I have Jonnu as a huge buy this offseason and Tonyan as a huge sell. And the reason for that is because Jonnu, as you said, is a free agent. But really, when you look at his career, the first few years, he was behind Delaney Walker, and he was held back by Marcus Mariota. And now finally we've seen him flash absolute greatness, but he just hasn't gotten the target share. He's been injured for stretches of this year. I think that he could really be taking a big step up next year, depending on his landing spot, if he does go to a team that's a little bit more pass heavy. And then Tonyan, we've talked about Tonyan quite a bit, but he had 11 touchdowns this past season, and that's simply unsustainable given that he's seeing less than 4 targets and 4 catches per game. I just don't see that holding up, especially if Green Bay does add a legit number 2 wide receiver next year or this offseason. I mean, the Tonyan regression is just screaming right now, and I would be selling him anywhere that I had him.
Now, John, you have Tonyan as your tight end 10, and I'm all about it. I got him for free everywhere. Tell me why you want that tight end tied to Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, and it is actually kind of hard to argue with Mung on the regression that you would expect there. I think he was tied with Kelce for the league lead in touchdowns, so it will be hard to sustain that. But it's kind of like, well, can Aaron Rodgers continue to sustain what he's doing? He had 48 touchdowns, super efficient. Just remember the consistency that Tonyan had, though. He scored in I believe 5 or 6 games straight, and he really did become the red zone guy outside Davante Adams. He became that number 2 that Green Bay was looking for, that Rodgers really needed. We'll have to see what they do in the draft. Do they bring in another wide receiver finally? Or do they actually trust that Tonyan is going to be a very consistent presence for them in the red zone? So I'm with you. I may consider moving him down some if I feel like he could get knocked down in the pecking order there. But look, when you win over Aaron Rodgers' trust and you're that consistent, he's worth considering, guys, as a tight end 1.
If moving Robert Tonyan here, John, what would it take for you as far as rookie picks? Be specific. I believe it's in that second round, but what would it take for you to?
Yeah, it would be. Yeah, I mean, I think that you're looking for a second round pick. You're definitely going to try to take advantage of the fact that I believe he finished as the number 3 overall tight end in PPR, and but what you want to do is make sure that your trade partner understands in those tight end premium leagues just how comparable he is to like some of those running backs and wide receivers out there. Throw him those point totals and see if you can take advantage of maybe even some of the recency bias and look for a piece like that that's going to consider comparable point totals. Otherwise, I'm looking to get like a high second if you can.
Yeah,
those are kind of specific moves I'd be willing to make. Or maybe I just bet that he can sustain some of those touchdowns, and I put him in my flex in a tight end premium, or he's my tight end 1 in a premium league.
I
John,
agree.
to your point, Rodgers is a sell for me too. I know you don't want to hear that.
Yeah, no, I get it. I actually get it. It's going to be hard to keep that kind of those kind of touchdowns and points going. Super efficient, and it's going to be a debate throughout the offseason.
Totally. The last 2 guys we have on here, and Mark, you and I have this guy highest. We had at D Kluge 90 on the last pod. He had Cole Kmet as his tight end 6 if Allen Robinson leaves and if things line up for him. You and I both have him at 15. Is he a buy for you right now?
Absolutely. Before Allen Robinson, we don't know what's going to happen there, so that eats up a lot of targets. And Jimmy Graham, we're not really sure. He might take over that position. I definitely 6 might be a little steep, but like I like him where he's at, and I definitely think he's a buy where he could easily go up. I mean, after 8, why couldn't he get up there?
Yeah, and there's a guy who I love. We've talked about him on the podcast. CJ had him as tight end 13. John, you have him as tight end 15. Is there a chance for a resurgence of Zach Ertz?
I really do think there is. I mean, I'm betting ahead of the curve on Dallas Goedert, despite where he finished. I think Philly was admittedly a mess. I mean, you guys are the Philly Eagles fans. I think that Zach Ertz is very well could ship out, but just look at what he did like this time 1 year ago. And we quickly kind of put some of those stats out of our minds. He still has a lot of the athleticism to get it done in the NFL. And if a team bets on him, he could sneak back up into the tight end 1 territory. I'm confident of that. And he actually showed flashes this year. He just kind of couldn't stay on the field. And again, things were a little bit dysfunctional in Philadelphia. So when you're kind of looking at some of those later rounds, I mean, Mike, you just said you got him in the 15th. That's great value for Zach Ertz.
I got him in the draft with Mark in the 15th round, and I actually had there's a lot of youth guys in that, like Dynasty Jacobian and FF Zoltan, a lot of guys that are great young up and coming analysts who were kind of mocking me a little bit for taking Zach Ertz, but I mean, he has been in that top 3 conversation, and I feel like he still belongs somewhere in that top 12 to 15 range, and I feel like that could be great value.
I agree with that.
In that top 15th round. Or top 15 rounds. Give me one guy who's not in this range. We haven't talked about him, but one guy who could really assert himself as that next guy who could finish in that top 12 out of nowhere, and I'm going to start with you, Mung. What's a guy who's outside that radar in the tight end range that could fall in there for you?
Yeah, I mean, in our consensus rankings, he's outside there, but I actually have Hayden Hurst as my tight end 15 in Dynasty. And the reason for that is we've seen him do great things in Atlanta, but this was his first year in that offense. And we talked about on the last episode about Julio being a sell as he begins to decline. And opposite Calvin Ridley, there really isn't a whole lot there. I mean, Russell Gage has been inconsistent throughout this season, and Hurst could step in as that number 2 guy.
I love it. John, what's one guy you're looking outside that top 12 that we've talked about tonight that's a guy that you want?
I'm going to throw out a name here, Dawson Knox, with one of the best offenses in the NFL in Buffalo. Josh Allen. Yeah, I mean, Buffalo's looking good. That's a top 5 offense right now. Josh Allen, look at what he's done. But look what happens when these guys get into the red zone. They really don't have much of a running game, at least as of now. They still kind of depend on Josh Allen and his legs. That's not going to open up a lot of times in these plays. And so they're looking for Dawson Knox pretty consistently. So he's going to have more red zone opportunities than actually a ton of the guys that we just went through. And he actually showed that he can get open and score throughout this past season. He's still young. He's still very athletic. He's got size. He stays on the field. He's going to be blocking. He's going to be running a ton of routes. And I think over time, he actually will increase his targets as Josh Allen depends on him in that offense. So remember this too, like look at all the other weapons. Diggs is going deep. You have Brown, you got Gabriel Davis going deep. You have to worry about Cole Beasley. And so what does that mean? It means that our boy Dawson Knox is going to be wide open over the middle for a lot of plays. And so I think that you kind of have to bet on that offense a bit and the opportunity that he's going to have. And he's a name that I'd look out for as a buy.
That's a great buy. And I feel like you can get him for a mid to late 3rd round pick at this point, because people are willing to give up on Dawson Knox.
That's right.
Mark, who's one guy that you're really looking in outside that range? Maybe somebody you took in the startup or maybe somebody you're looking at deep.
I don't know if this is off the radar, but OJ Howard. I think that Gronk might not come back and Chris Godwin might not come back. In the beginning of the year, he really put up some stats, and then he got hurt, and then everybody kind of forgot about him. Tom Brady's going to come back. I really think he could easily bump into the top 12. Maybe not a long-term option, but at least for 2021.
Yeah, and there's so many guys in that options. I mean, you could talk about Eric Ebron, but I'm going to talk about Dallas. Dalton Schultz stepped up, but even cheaper than that, Blake Jarwin. We were predicting his breakout. I feel like you can buy him for a 4th round pick right now who has top 12 upside. If Dak comes back, if things happen in the right direction, that could possibly progress there. But I want to thank all 3 of you guys for coming on here. Why don't you tell me real quick where they can find your work, where they can find you on Twitter. And again, thank you for tuning in. We went almost double time what we talked about, at the tight end position. But listen to our Patreon, guys. You guys are going to find our rankings. You're going to find some incredible work from all of our analysts here at Smash Accept, including some great guests. Normally we go the other way. But, John, why don't you go first? Tell people where they can find you and some things maybe you're excited for 2021.
Yeah, it's John at Dynasty_trades. And that is kind of what we do, Mike. We do kind of go above and beyond. We're trying to give you as much as we can. And I really think that these rankings that we went through are going to be very helpful. A lot of you guys don't have the time to do all this yourselves. So take advantage of all the work that we put into it. And again, you have a pretty solid community. We're constantly bouncing ideas off each other. We got our finger on the pulse. For me, I've been playing fantasy for 20 years. So you can take advantage of some of that. And more than anything, it's just so much fun, Mike. So reach out to us. Let's mix it up. Let us help you, win some games, maybe win some leagues, and have fun doing it, right? So, I can't wait to continue this forward in the off season, Mike.
Yeah, and saying we've been playing Dynasty and fantasy for 20 years makes us sound a little bit old, but Mark's
there is that.
Me playing fantasy for the last 20 years, and he knows every league we've been in. I've been in the playoffs or the championship. Mark, what are some guys as far as tight end that you're excited about? What are some things in the offseason that you're super excited about as far as the new podcast, the new Patreon, anything that's exciting to you right now?
I think this is a pretty exciting time. John has already kind of described it about the rookie draft coming up and everything. There's a lot to look for. I'm super excited about the new podcast that me and my brother Dynasty Dad are going to start up. They're one of the best two guys there is when it comes to training, and I think it's definitely going to be something that everybody's going to want to be interested in. Everybody wants to trade. Everybody needs to know the values for certain players. And also, you can find me on Twitter at the Dynasty Lefty. I like to just do any kind of trades that the Smash Accept is linked into, and I just like to go from there.
Yeah, I mean, that's great. I did 127 trades. CJ did 119. Everybody else isn't much as well, I don't want to say it, but we're not too much into the trades as much as him and I are. So we're excited to dive into that. Mung, what are you really excited about for 2021 and the Smash Accept podcast?
Yeah, I mean, there's just never enough time when we're doing these episodes to talk about everything and everyone that we want to talk about. And that's what the Patreon is going to give you, a chance to get to kind of the low-key stuff that we don't necessarily have time to cover. Like, I wanted to talk about Anthony Firkser, who's a restricted free agent if Jonnu leaves. I love Mo Alie-Cox, who's a restricted free agent. Trey Burton's a free agent. Jack Doyle hasn't done much. So there's so many names that, we can dive into more, but there's just not enough hours in the day, not enough minutes in the day. So I'm excited for some of these extra episodes that we're going to be doing. And of course, you can always find me on Twitter at FFA_Mung. That's MENG.
Yeah, we're excited. I mean, obviously, we're not trying to make a lot of money off this. We're just trying to have you guys support the podcast. Patreon's going to be launching February 1st. We got the t-shirts right now, $20, shipped to you, the Smash Accept t-shirts. I mean, Mark, you can attest to it. It's a tri-blend. It's super comfortable. John will make fun of me. It shows the guns a little bit. It is nice and snug, and it's a fantastic t-shirt. And $20 shipped is between $6 and $15 cheaper than everybody else, and John and I were joking around. You guys can smash your opponents, not in a weird way, and look good doing it, and so you guys hit me up on that on Twitter. We'll send you out a t-shirt. All of you guys are going to get your shirts. Mark gets the brotherly discount. I dropped it off at his house, but the rest of you guys, it'll be coming later on in the week. You can find me at Dynasty_DadFF. I've noticed since we've launched this podcast, literally the number of tweets and DMs have tripled, and we love that. I mean, we love answering your questions. We love being interactive with you guys. And I know a lot of podcasts say they don't have time for that, and we want to make sure we're doing what we can for you guys. So thank you much for tuning in. Thank you so much, and enjoy the process.